This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
You all ready for this?
This is a sham.
No. Y'all, just stop.
Get real.
Welcome to DBL. Hello, everyone. We have an update, and I know we've been following this story all week. After locating two different debris fields near the wreckage of the Titanic yesterday, the U.S. Coast Guard revealed that the missing submersible, the Titan, most likely experienced a catastrophic implosion during its descent on Sunday. A remote-controlled vehicle discovered the debris field just 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic. 5 major pieces from the Titan were found, including the front end of the pressure hull, as well as the tail cone. All 5 men on board are now presumed dead. We're also learning that the U.S. Navy, using a secret network of underwater sensors, actually detected the sound of a possible implosion just as all communications failed. They said the information was shared with the Coast Guard. So today there are still questions, including whether or not the company that operated the sub, which is called Ocean Gate, can be held liable, and who was responsible for paying for that massive search and rescue operation. What do we think just of the fate of the Titan? Just wanted to give you all some space to speak about it.
I think if I was a family member, I would be really angry, but it would depend on each person's situation. I know that some of the individuals, like the French diver, this is what they love.
Fair.
Right? And I think about some of my motocross friends. Like, they're going to assume the risk because this is what they love doing. Some of the other people, like the 19-year-old or even the businessman, were they swindled, so to speak? I want to give you some details on the waiver, okay?
Please.
In the waiver, there's a number of warnings, and it mentions fatality 3 different times. But in this one, it says the experimental submersible vessel has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and may be constructed of materials that have not been widely used in other subs. So for me, is that enough to excuse the company? Because if you're signing something right then and there that says it's not regulated
Or certified,
is that enough of the onus on you at that point? What would you say, Erica?
I don't know. I mean, so much of this is so unprecedented, but I do want to circle back to what you said about just using discernment on how we're speaking about not only the situation, but the victims involved, because I appreciate you saying that there were people who were like, I'm going to assume the risk. We all know people like that, right? But then there's this conversation that's being had on social media, and it's very insensitive, especially considering that a young man lost his life.
19.
Who apparently was a part of this journey based on his father. And I think we can all think about whether or not it's our father or a parental figure, someone we just respect, that we want to share in an experience with, or we want to make them proud, and how much that would contribute to a decision like this.
Yeah.
So yes, was he technically an adult? Could he make his own decisions? Of course. But that's a lot of pressure to put on someone. And the idea that this conversation is so insensitive on social media really creeps me out.
That's fair. The conversation has gone both ways on social media, right? It's been jokes and memes to we feel terrible.
How is someone thinking it's okay to put up a joke or a meme? I don't understand it.
And there's something to what the psychologist said they were feeling, which was gallows humor, which is dark humor. And you find a lot of people in the military say they use that to get through it. It's a mechanism, right? To make a joke about it. It is, of course, insensitive. But I also understand when someone can't fathom the tragedy, they go to humor as a comic. That makes sense to me, even though in this situation it's insensitive. Let me ask you guys this, and I hope this isn't insensitive. Do you think it was wise to continue the search and rescue if they heard the implosion Sunday?
Because who's going to pay for that, right? Exactly.
It's so much money and so many lives, right? Put at risk. Canada, France, America, 3 countries, multiple personnel. What do we think? And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I think we should at least discuss this. What do you guys think about that?
I think, listen, if they know for a fact that there is an implosion, I would have loved if they skirted those, search efforts to the migrant, boat that have 300 passengers plus 500 passengers. But at the same time, how do you know? I wish we had some sort of maritime expert on here.
Right.
Because how do you know for sure? If they knew for sure,
right,
then yes, I think it's irresponsible and you're keeping people's hopes alive, and you could use those search efforts for other people.
Fair.
But I don't know if they knew 100%.
Right.
Well, I think you kind of answered the question within the question about, we know for sure that there were hundreds of migrants on a boat that were drowning.
Yeah.
Their lives were in peril.
And their lives could still, right now, they could be alive.
Exactly. But we weren't sure about this super, sensational exhibition that was happening that was carrying billions of dollars, or people with net worth of billions of dollars. And that really tells you where, first of all, the value, the interest, and all of that lies. So, I mean, both situations, people were in danger. I don't want to say, in either situation, I don't want to be like, well, this person's life is more valuable than that person's life.
Yep.
But I think we kind of
did.
Yeah.
We did. It says, thank you for saying and bringing this up. It just shows you which lives are worth saving to the money, to the people up there. It just shows you. It's a clear example.
Right.
Two different people drowning, two different situations.
Two tragedies.
And we spent two tragedies, and we spent all the resources there. Speaking of resources, who pays for this? Who does pay? Do the taxpayers? Do U.S. taxpayers?
Erica brought up a great point about insurance, because typically when you go on these expeditions, you have to buy insurance, and then that search effort is paid for by that company that put on that expedition.
Right.
But go ahead.
What insurance company is going to cover something that has said 3 times that you could potentially die? They haven't followed regulations. The CEO himself is on record saying that he's ignored protocol and regulations.
Yeah, what insurance company is going to?
So, I mean, I don't know. And also, we don't know how personal liability insurance or all of these things, some people, especially at that net worth, might have insurance that covers, catastrophic event, like whatever. But I can't see an insurance company saying, yeah, we're going to sign on and underwrite this.
I agree with you. Let's see. We'll find out who pays for this. I wanted to get to this. Families and friends of the 5 people on board the Titan are remembering the loved ones. And in a statement, OceanGate paid tribute to their CEO, Stockton Rush, and the other 4 lives lost, saying these men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure and a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans. Now, the family of British billionaire and avid explorer Hamish Harding called him a loving husband and a dedicated father, saying if there's any small consolation, it's that we lost him doing what he loved. Now, the family of the retired French diver and Titanic expert, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, said he would be remembered as one of the greatest deep-sea explorers in modern history. Finally, and this is what Erica brought up and touched on that's very tragic, the family of Pakistani businessman Shahzad Dawood and his son Suleiman said they were, quote, overwhelmed with the love and support they have received. But yesterday, Suleiman's aunt revealed that her 19-year-old nephew wasn't very up for it and felt, quote, terrified about the trip to the Titanic. She later was quoted saying he went because it was Father's Day weekend.
I have goosebumps. Goosebumps.
You said in the meeting, let's be transparent, who wouldn't at 19, with a billionaire father, want to please them? He was obsessed with the Titanic, this man, allegedly.
I don't care if your father is worth 2 nickels to rub together.
Right.
If that is a relationship that you feel like you want to build stronger, and maybe you aren't getting the type of time, or, who knows what the situation is at that point, yes, I can see myself making decisions based on, this is something my dad is so passionate about.
Totally.
Maybe this is the thing that will connect us forever.
As a child, even when you're 42, when I look to my parents, I trust their decisions because I put them on a pedestal, right? They're an authoritative figure. So that plays into it too. If dad's doing it and dad feels safe and checked all the boxes, I feel safe too. It's heartbreaking all around. My heart goes out to all those families. I'm so sorry.
It's very difficult. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
Well, coming up on DBL, we're going to continue this conversation because guess what? James Cameron is speaking out about all of this. What does he think about the similarities to the sinking of the Titanic? I just got goosebumps too, Sam. And our interview with go-go UFO's front woman. Changing gears here, Belinda Carlisle. She's telling us all about her new music, and it sounds groovy.
DBL, this show is amazing.
There's a lot going on down here. I would have been part of the Mile High Club.
Yeah.
So on point. But I'm going to have a conversation about what's happening now. What did I say?
Yeah, so we touched on a lot of things, but I think one thing that people can really resonate with is the relationship when we're talking about the 19-year-old kid. Because if you go on social media, there are so many people who have been making jokes about it like the entire time. But when it came specifically to the 19-year-old, that's where I was like, pointing out Sam's discernment. Because you can only imagine that at 19, like in this case, his dad is someone of influence. You would assume that he is in a situation where he's being pulled in a lot of different directions. So I could see myself making a decision like that. Like, you know what, my parent is doing this. This is a trip of a lifetime.
Last summer. You literally did that.
Okay.
Costa Rica.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You literally did that.
But yeah, I hear that.
She went in the middle of the swamp in the jungle,
I
got
did.
bitten the hell up.
I did. I actually did. Yes,
You
my
literally
mother.
did this.
And the thing about it too. Okay, I did do that. Thank you for the reminder. I am not a go in the middle of a jungle type person. There were like all sorts of animals and stuff there. That is not my vibe. I was eaten alive by like mosquitoes, like all this stuff. And it seemed like it was regulated. I'm not so sure it was. There were many moments where I was like, this does not seem like such a great idea. But I did it because my mother was like so passionate about doing this, right? And I should have known better because the day after my wedding, 7 years ago, my mother was going on and on about wanting to swim with the dolphins. Now I know people have, very strong feelings about that, but that's what she wanted to do. I didn't want to swim with the dolphins, but I went with my mother. And do you know the day after my wedding, on that day, my mother almost drowned. Oh. She almost drowned.
Goosebumps, Erica. Goosebumps. Welcome back to DBL. Titanic director James Cameron is speaking out about the Titan tragedy, which we now know imploded on its way to tour the Titanic. Here's what he told CNN about what he thought caused the tragedy. Let's take a look.
The only scenario that I could come up with in my mind that could account for that was an implosion, a shockwave event so powerful that it actually took out a secondary system that has its own pressure vessel and its own battery power supply, which is the transponder that the ship uses to track where the sub is. That seemed to me enough confirmation that I let all of my inner circle of people know that we had lost our comrades, and I encourage everybody to raise a glass in their honor on Monday.
So Cameron also shared some insight about the similarities between the fate of the Titanic and the Titan sub. Take a look at this.
The Achilles heel of the sub was the composite cylinder that was the main hull that the people were inside. There were two titanium end caps on each end. They are relatively intact on the seafloor, but that carbon fiber composite cylinder is now just in very small pieces, and it's all rammed into one of the hemispheres.
So what do we think about James Cameron's perspective on all this? He went on to say that the captain of the Titanic, sort of with hubris, ran into a moonless night, into an ice field, with telegrams saying you're in danger in his pockets, and still did it. Whereas this same captain of the Ocean Gate really did the same thing. And the similarities there are hard not to point out about the hubris or the thinking that you are better than nature.
And I wonder if hubris also goes into, like, I think about times that I've signed waivers, whether it's skydiving or whatnot. And you sign the waiver, you read all those details, as you should, but then you also look to your instructor and they say, I've done 300 jumps, don't worry about it. I'm just curious what some of those side conversations were with maybe the businessman and his son, with the captain. Like, listen, yes, you signed sign this waiver. You're assuming all this risk, but listen, I've already gone down there 5 times. It's fine. I'm curious what those conversations were like, because I know that would influence me.
Right.
It shouldn't.
Right.
But it would. If someone is so confident and hubris, would that influence the people to then go on that ship?
Well, we talked about this earlier, and the understanding was that we know that there was a passenger who decided that it was too risky.
Correct.
Decided not to go.
That actually didn't decide to go.
Right,
Yeah.
and that apparently there was a conversation or an influence from the CEO to get these people to go. And if I'm being influenced to put my life in danger, then I'm more likely to think about it like I'm being manipulated or used, because obviously they needed these paying customers on board in order to further their research or their development or whatever they were doing.
Or their bottom line. Eric,
Yeah.
it's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. Well, our thoughts and prayers go out. We'll keep you updated. We will be right back.
Summer is here, and that means your family might go swimming in lakes or rivers to beat the heat. And yes, your pets too. But before you or your pet jump in, listen up. State officials and pet owners have issued warnings over the years about blue-green algae blooms after dogs died from suspected poisoning. So let's verify. Is some blue-green algae toxic to pets? Our sources are the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Washington State Department of Health, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and VCA Animal Hospitals. If you see a body of water that appears to have green paint or pea soup floating on top, that is likely cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae. It usually blooms in the summer and early fall. Most blue-green algae blooms are not harmful, but some can produce toxins that can be deadly to pets. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency says blue-green algae blooms can lead to poisoning in pets if they drink from or swim in contaminated water sources. Dogs can also ingest the algae by licking it off of their fur after a swim. The CDC says animals can die within hours to days of swallowing those toxins. So we can verify, yes, some blue-green algae is toxic to pets. So how can you tell if a blue-green algae bloom is toxic? You can't. VCA Animal Hospitals say it's impossible to tell whether a bloom contains toxins just by looking at it, and that all blue-green algae blooms should be considered toxic until proven otherwise. So be vigilant. Don't allow pets to drink from water that has bluish-green scum on the surface or around the edges. And if you think your pet swam in water with blue-green algae, make sure to rinse them thoroughly with clean water afterward and contact a vet immediately. Those blooms can also affect you. Our sources say exposure to high levels of blue-green algae and their toxins can cause diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, skin irritation, and difficulty breathing in humans. With your Verify, I'm Ariande Till.
There's so much snapping in the 80s, right? Welcome back. It's hard not to think about 80s music without thinking about Belinda Carlisle and all those hits we just heard. Earlier, we chatted with the pop icon about her new album, Kismet. Check it out.
Please welcome to the show, Belinda Carlisle.
Belinda, what an honor. Let's jump right in. Social media has introduced a whole new generation to 80s music, like yours with the Go-Go. So what's it like to see your music from the 80s inspire a younger generation?
Oh, it's amazing. I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, like Heaven is a Place on Earth being in Black Mirror, and that brought a whole new demographic to my shows and to my music. And we've been lucky enough as the Go-Go's too to have a lot of our songs placed in movies and TV shows, and yeah, it just brings a whole new generation. It's amazing.
I wanted to ask you about this. You dealt with a lot of criticism from your weight when you were younger. Do you think we are headed in the right direction as far as at least Hollywood's criticism of women's bodies in general, or do you feel like we still have a long way to go?
Well, I mean, I don't really pay attention too much, but it seems like there's a lot more body positivity than when I was, you know, when I was starting out. I mean, as a young girl, it was very damaging. Even being, you know, I was pretty and plump, cute and chubby. You know, it was always, my weight was always mentioned with, you know, was synonymously with my name or whatever I was doing. So it was tough. People didn't realize how damaging it is to a young girl.
Sure.
So I think it's a lot better. I think there's a long ways to go, though, for sure.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, you know, the album has such a cool, unique name, Kismet. What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I was not planning to do any more music, to be honest. I was kind of thinking about, you know, retirement or semi-retirement. And then my son ran into Diane Warren, who, you know, everybody knows who Diane is, probably one of the greatest living songwriters. And coincidentally, he introduced himself and he goes, "What is your mom doing?" And so they FaceTimed me. It was out of the blue, and I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to commit to something or not, like this, like recording. But you don't say no to Diane Warren. So she had just written Big, Big Love, which was the first single off the EP, a couple of days before, and she wasn't sure who it was for. So she thought, bingo, it's for Belinda. And I went down to the studio. I heard Big, Big Love, and I thought, I can't say no to this. It's like a gift from heaven. And so that's why it was like a series of coincidences that led me to make this EP. It wasn't planned at all. So hence the name Kismet.
I'm always curious, you know, with the person that comes up with the album, what their favorite song is. And it's not necessarily how popular it is. It's just like, I always think that there's a song that you like the most. Is there one for you on this album?
Well, I think for me and for a lot of people the feedback is the last song on the EP is called Sanity, and it's totally insane and full on. And I think that's probably my favorite song off the EP.
That's a great cover.
I know.
That is a great cover.
Love that. I want to wish you a happy Pride Month. You posted a picture of you and your son in honor. What does Pride mean for you?
Right. Well, so my son, I have a gay son. So for me, it's about, you know, I'll do anything for the community that I can to help it. And, you know, it's like, since he came out when he was 14, it's like 10 steps forward, 5 back. And you know, I've been an activist for the gay community since the AIDS crisis began. So I've lost a lot of friends to AIDS. So for me, it's about self-love and acceptance. And as they say, love is love. And I think it's always fun to go out and celebrate.
Beautiful. Beautifully stated. Belinda, thank you so much for joining us. DBL Nation, you can check out Belinda's new album, Kismet, now wherever you listen to music. Thanks again. Congratulations. We're so glad you're back.
Thank you.
Are you skeptical of headlines and what you see on social media? We are too. The Verify newsletter helps you distinguish between true and false information by answering your questions. It provides fast facts on trending topics, spotlights major stories, and even includes a daily fun fact for all those trivia buffs out there. Get Verify's fast facts delivered every weekday to your email inbox. Go to verifythis.com/email to check it out.
Millions of retired Americans rely on Social Security checks to pay their bills. But several Verify viewers asked us if the program could soon run out of money. So let's verify. Will Social Security go bankrupt? Our sources are the Social Security Administration, AARP, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, the Congressional Research Service, and Joseph Cordes, a professor of economics and public policy at the George Washington University. Here's how Social Security's budget works. Revenue is collected from payroll taxes. Funds are distributed in the form of monthly checks to all the eligible recipients. If more money is coming in than going out, the excess gets put into a special trust fund. For decades, that was the case, as there were more workers paying taxes than recipients collecting checks. But in recent years, there have been more and more retirees, and those retirees are living longer, meaning Social Security is paying out more than it's taking in from payroll taxes. So how does SSA make up the difference? That trust fund. But of course, you can only do that for so long before the trust fund is depleted. Experts estimate that at the current rate, the trust fund could be out of money in about 10 years. So what happens then? Is the whole system bankrupt? No, because you still have payroll taxes coming in from everyone currently in the workforce. Experts say those taxes could cover 77% of the benefits any given year. So we can verify, no, Social Security won't go bankrupt, but the checks could get smaller. That reduction in benefits would make a huge difference for millions of Americans, and that's why advocacy groups are pushing Congress to find another funding source to close the gap. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Artificial intelligence is slowly taking over the drive-thru. Let's connect the dots. Whether or not you've noticed, restaurants like Wendy's to White Castle have been using small amounts of AI in their drive-thrus for years. Wendy's CEO said the slowest part of the drive-thru is the ordering station. AI is able to cut down wait times by automating orders, relieving overworked employees, and filling in the holes at short-staffed restaurants. As more and more restaurants use AI, tech experts warn employees may soon be out of a job. AI can work long hours without pay or insurance. The technology, though, has some hiccups. AI is unable to hear customers in noisy environments, like when kids are in the car or music is playing. Right now, there's not enough data to show whether customers prefer AI over human employees. But experts say by the time the data is gathered, AI may have already taken over. And that is Connecting the Dots.
Welcome back. Summer is finally here. Yay! And that means it's time to take your patios hosting ready. Here's your guide to a backyard makeover with Sunsetter. First, you want to make sure your patio has a cool factor. Add outdoor ceiling fans to cool the space down, and you can provide air circulation. Next, make space for dining. A tip is to get a solid wood dining set that's low maintenance and big enough for the entire fam. Finally, hang that ambient light. You know I love this. This helps illuminate your patio while setting a mood. Sunsetter is America's #1 best-selling awning with affordable custom features without the custom price. So spend more time outside and get the best value with Sunsetter. It's been an industry leader for 30 years. Call 1-800-513-6851 or visit sunsetter.com for guaranteed pricing on American-made awnings built to last. This is, of course, about the gorgeous Belinda Carlisle. We got some comments. Sherry, wow, Belinda looks great. Didn't she look fabulous?
Fabulous.
Fabulous. What a cool blast from the past. And Lee wrote so many good go-go songs. And, of course, Belinda also did, ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. I
didn't know that was her.
That's Belinda.
What?
And Black Mirror brought that back to a new generation at the end of San Junipero, which is their most famous episode.
Right, I've seen that episode.
They used it in such a dramatic way that I suggest y'all listen and blast it today. Blast it today with Daily Blast Live. All right, DBL every day. We'll see you same time, same place, money. Be good to yourselves, be good to others, be good to nature, and happy Pride. Bye, guys.